Well, hello, everyone, and welcome to this episode of the Ministry Show. Pam and I are thrilled to be with you today. And man, we have had a couple of really good interviews, huh, Pam?
Oh, I loved both shows that we just finished recording. They were amazing. And I would encourage everyone listening for you to encourage all your pastor friends to listen to those. They were so insightful and so encouraging.
Yeah, so just send them a link and they can listen. But Shawn Lovejoy was incredible to chat with, and then also Alan Briggs. And so we're just going to have a little conversation here and debrief both of those shows. And if you want to go back and listen to them, then go right ahead. One of the strongest points, at least for me, from Shawn's interview was, and I won't say it as well as Shawn did, but he made a point of asking kind of this question: why would God give you more people or more influence if you're not stewarding the people and influence that you currently have? And I know that there's a tension there. It's a pretty deep tension. And some of it, at least to me, Pam, has to do with that contentment. Am I content in the state that I'm in? Like Paul eventually wrote, I've learned whatever state I'm in to be content in that. Well, I don't know about you, but I got a lot of work to do there. I don't know that I can say that very often.
Me as well.
Because there's more or different or better or striving to be all that we can be. So how does that work in life? Just to, hey, God's blessed, be thankful, be content where you're at, but also be looking forward to advancing the kingdom, expanding what's going on.
Yeah, and I really appreciated what Shawn tied in about stewardship, how it's not just money, it's about people and bringing the ideas about celebrating wins. Chris, if you're like me, we tend to focus on things that didn't go right, and I loved the perspective he gave. Celebrate those wins. How are we stewarding our people, celebrating with people, and watching our attitude around people? We can focus on those little things because, that perfectionism can kick in. That's not good.
Well, Pam, I'm glad you brought that up. One of the exercises that I do with almost every coaching client that I have is when you're debriefing, start with what went well and then celebrate that.
Yes.
So if you're debriefing the event, debriefing the worship set, whatever it might be, what did we do that was positive? And I can't tell you the number of pastors that have said by asking that question first, it changes the entire atmosphere of the team instantly.
Absolutely.
Because
yes.
Our teams, by and large, are doing some really super good things. And in a small way, it's a little celebration to acknowledge that. But the way to get better is to know what you're doing well and do more of it. But then also things that maybe didn't go so well, tweaking that. It's a both and world. So thanks for bringing that up. But Shawn talked about that as well. And if we lose our zeal for celebrating the win, the energy level in our teams spirals downward instead of upward.
For sure. You notice that even when you walk in a room, somebody comes in and they're just happy or have that excitement, the whole room changes. Don't you find that? Someone walks in kind of sad, it changes everything, or comes in with something negative, it just changes it. So we got to keep our attitudes right.
And I think I mentioned in a show when I was a young pastor, I used to stop on my way home. I had a wife and 3 young kids. And at least for me, I had to double check my own perspective and attitude for my home life. And we might want to reverse that. Maybe I should have done that on my way into the, I never thought about that, but our attitude, our language only comes from our attitude. In other words, he's going to speak what's in the heart kind of a thing, or woman for that matter. It is super important to acknowledge the good. And then if you're not in the habit of doing that, I just suggest to you, try that at your next debrief. Bottom line from Shawn, invest first.
Right.
Invest in people, not only in their skill set, but making an emotional investment in people. And when we do that, as pastors and church leaders, we open the door for the work of the Holy Spirit in not only our lives, but the lives of the people that we're influencing.
Yes. And Alan Briggs, I love how he talked about we need to lead ourselves well in the marathon of ministry. And he talked about aiming at and why. Didn't you love that, Chris? I thought it was so good. He was talking about celebrating the progress. So we're celebrating those wins. But then he came in and said, celebrate the progress and how it's a mindset. We're not looking hard enough at what we aren't celebrating.
Yeah, both Shawn and Alan kind of hit a little bit the same thing, but from a different perspective.
Right.
And Alan's was, if we're always comparing to other people or other ministries, our creativity is just absolutely squashed.
Right.
Because we need to copy them so that we can become like somebody else. I think both guys as well pointed out that leadership is not easy. And it doesn't matter if it's spiritual leadership, business leadership, public leadership of some type. It really doesn't matter. Leadership is a calling.
Yes.
And we have to double check our calling sometimes and go, hey, am I really called to be a leader? And if so, I need to understand that it's difficult. I need to have maybe Teflon skin would be the way to say it. We don't want to get a turtle shell where people can't penetrate and have an influence on us, but we do need to let certain things just slide off so that we can keep moving forward on that leadership pathway.
And you bring up a good point, because I think both Shawn and Alan identified they're better coaches than they are players. I mean, that was like
I
the
remember
theme
Shawn
with both
saying that pretty directly.
Yeah, he was. He's, I know my gifts. I know where, and I think he did well in both, but he realized that coaching, he was even more in his gifts.
Yeah. Well, part of the reason that both you and I are doing the ministry show here is we like to see the progression made by others and the accomplishments that they get to enjoy in the kingdom. It's a heartwarming thing. So that's what we're trying to do here. Again, if you want to go back and listen to both Alan and Shawn's shows where we interviewed them, you can log on theministryshow.com and look on. But then also, Alan talked a lot about health. And especially when you're starting something out, he works with so many church planters, so many people that have big vision, big ideals, big energy and momentum. But staying healthy within that is a little bit, it's almost contrary because we can burn out. I'd encourage you to re-listen to Alan, because health in ministry, health is a requirement of growth, in my opinion.
Right. Well, as we talked about in show 40, Chris, you talked a lot about energy management and how that trumps time management. And he also talked about that. So a lot of great tidbits. Go back, listen to them. You'll really enjoy them.
Yeah, and so we want to cut this show just a little bit short to give you a little bit of time. If you haven't heard Alan or Shawn, I encourage you to go back and listen to those. Or if you've heard them, man, one of the best things you can do is go listen to it again. You'll pick up other things. So here's a couple action steps that we talked about. The first one is take a staff member or a friend out to lunch or have a coffee and just have a conversation with them. No agenda for ministry or no checklist for items, what's gone on. Don't talk about their role or their responsibility. Talk about them as a person. Ask a question and then listen. So that's one assignment. You have another one.
Celebrate the wins. Just look at your week, and no matter how small or maybe how insignificant you think they are, celebrate those wins so that others can celebrate and feel encouraged.
By the way, if you're not used to just going out and having a friendly conversation with somebody, we talked about the FORM, F-O-R-M kind of a format. Yes. I can't remember one of them. There's probably lots of different words you could use, but they are talk about their family.
Yes.
If you want to talk about their occupation, but not in the sense of their current role, like why do you like doing what you do? Versus what did you accomplish today? Relatives, that's always a fun one because I find out a lot about somebody's personality based upon their relatives. That's another show though. Anyway, and then all of us are dealing with money in some form or fashion. Maybe we're in a heavy amount of debt. Maybe we're getting rid of debt. Maybe we're earning enough. Maybe we want to earn more. Maybe we have a little business plan. Those are some things that you could talk about that would lead to getting to know somebody. And then also, I want to encourage you to set aside a time to reflect on what's happening in your life. Some people do it daily, some people do it weekly, monthly, quarterly, whatever it might be. But here's what I know. Annually is not enough. Towards the end of the year, we might have a day or something and we think, oh, what happened this year? It's just too much. We forget too many things. So set aside a time to reflect on what in the world is happening in your world. And again, if that's daily for you, it might be 10 or 15 minutes a day. Just pause and reflect. If it's weekly, Pam, I think you know that I take Friday afternoon from 3 to 5. Very rarely do I interrupt that time, maybe once or twice a year, because it's so important. I learn about myself, and then as I reflect, I'm like, oh, what a mistake I made with maybe a person. And I am able then to know and understand that, apologize if necessary, or redirect. It's just so helpful for me to set up my next week. Some people do it monthly. And of course, our CEO of our company, one of the founders and CEO, he is religious about getting away quarterly for a couple of days. Anyway, those are some little assignments for you if you'd like to take that challenge. Our sponsors make this whole thing possible. Thank you so much for being part of the ministry show. Until next week, I hope you have a good one, and God bless.